Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to this great joint meeting of the Fountain Hills Unified School District Board and the Town Council and staff, and we're so happy to have you all here. Why don't we do a call to order? We'll do the introductions, and then we'll see if anybody wants to say anything before we get started. Should we do like a regular roll call, or how do we do this? Well, we'll just start there. How about Councilman Spellich? You want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Councilman Dave Spellich.
Thank you.
Did you want a bio or something? I don't go to school anymore.
Well done.
Hi, Wendy Barnard. I'm on the governing board.
Sherry LaCrone, council member.
Allen Magazine Council member.
Jenny Dickey, Mayor.
Jill,
It's habit.
Jill Reed, president of the governing board.
Dennis Brown, council member.
Art Tolis, Vice Mayor and Council Member.
C.T. Rice, School Board. Mike Charno, Town Council.
Judy Redkowski, school board member.
Nadia Jenkins, school board member.
Aaron Arnson, Town Attorney.
Thank you, everyone. Does anybody in the crowd want to say anything to anybody up here or have anything to say before we get started? You're welcome to do that now. Okay, thank you very much. So our first item that we have here is related to our intergovernmental agreements, and I'm just going to let Grady take it away. And I looked over there, you're down there, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor, Council, and governing board members, and Chair Reed. The reason why we have the IGAs, or the intergovernmental agreements, on the agenda is just basically to show that we have a lot of working relationships between the town and the school district. And it wasn't really for us to really get into the discussion of these, but just to show that there's a number of areas, such as shared facility usage, and other areas that we have commonality and mutual interests where we work together. We are a small community and have a excellent working relationship between ourselves. So that's all it's there for. If anyone had any questions about those, or if you had any other ideas in the future about any other future intergovernmental agreements, that would be something that we could talk about at this point. But these were just here just to show the relationship that we currently enjoy between our two organizations.
Anybody have any questions? Yes.
I'll make a comment. I just want to thank the town for working with the school district with this IGA, because I will say, working with some of the athletic teams, we're able to use the community center, which is such an amazingly beautiful space, at no charge, and the different camps and the programs that you bring to our school districts, Middle School Madness, I know that's MCSO, but other things have just been really, really wonderful, and our kids really enjoy the activities that the town brings. So I want to just extend my appreciation.
Thank you. And again, this is one of those great situations where we really do work very closely with one another. This is a model, and this is not typical in most cities and towns with the school district. A lot of times, school districts, my experience, the school districts and the cities and towns sometimes are at odds with one another, or there's some relationship issues. And I think we have a really very good relationship, and I think a lot of it has to do with our small size. We really work it to our advantage. And thank you to the school district too, because we also have a number of programs that we utilize your school facilities. So it's a mutually agreeable type of arrangement. So thank you very much.
I would just like to make one other comment. I agree with Dr. Barnard that these are really important, and we are very thankful. Just based on reading them, we probably should sit down and update them, because looking at the signatures, the superintendent is about 4 people ago. So this would probably be a nice thing for us to rework. Definitely keep them intact, but there's probably some language change and definitely some different signatures.
That's a good point. I think the way that they're also written is to be evergreen, so that they are really memorialized forever until there's a need to update. And so I would agree with you. If you're feeling that the time is right, then maybe Dr. Allen and I can at least get going on a meeting and seeing where we can update, and maybe there might be some other items we can add
That would be
that are
great.
relevant. So thank you.
Yes, with new facilities coming on and different structure, it probably would be a good idea.
Great, thank you.
One of the things I always remember was when I was on the school board, it was right at the beginning when we started talking about having a SRO. And so we had to go to the council meeting and ask for that, and then years later, being on the council, advocating for that. So indeed, we have all the same constituents, and we're all in the same community here. One of the things I did want to ask Grady or Dr. Allen about is when it comes to an IGA, so Jill and I met what seems like ages ago, but it was only in February. We talked a little bit about some of the endeavors we could do when it comes to like economic development, telling each other's stories, all the good things that are happening, the scholarships, the sports, and now the A+ school. If we were to launch anything like that, do you always have to get into the IGA sort of situation, or can you do projects together? How could we do something like that?
Thank you, Mayor Dickey. I believe we could, through informal agreements or conversations, we could probably develop joint projects without everything needing to be in a formalized agreement.
I would concur with that as well. I think anything that is really not governing the use of facilities or assets or anything like that, if it's programmatic, I think that those are types of things that clearly we could work together without having to have an IGA.
Perfect.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this item? Well, yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to say, with all the programs and everything, the kids can't say in Fountain Hills that they never have anything to do, because there's always something to do.
That's true. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add real quick to piggyback on all that. I know our most recently updated strategic plan has several components in there about the school and the district working together. So yeah, obviously you want to keep these IGAs up to date and the working cooperative agreements in place in that relationship. So it's important for the whole community.
Definitely. Thank you. The next item is a discussion related to safety and security of the school campuses. Is that Dr. Allen or Grady or?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dickey. While we believe we have safe and secure school campuses and do everything to ensure student safety all the hours they're on our campus, we're constantly seeking to improve the safety and security of our schools. And so we've undertaken several endeavors in the last couple of years with respect to school vulnerability. We've had Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, under the direction of Paul Penzone, do 2 site vulnerability assessments for our facilities. And this includes the McDowell Mountain Elementary, Fountain Hills Middle School, and Fountain Hills High School. And the site vulnerability assessments have assessed both access to the schools and perimeter vulnerability. And the first assessment done, I believe, in 2017 led to changes that we performed in our schools with respect to limiting access to the front office lobbies. And that goes into the second item B, I believe, on the agenda. While we're not trying to restrict access to the schools, we want to make sure that adults or visitors have to pass through an entryway where their access is approved and allowed. So there's actually ballistic resistant glass and walls installed in each of the lobbies of all 3 of those schools, plus the district office. In addition to that, there are buzzer doors. So in other words, when a visitor or a parent walks into the front lobby, they meet or greet a receptionist. They sign in, and once their access has been approved, they pass through a buzzer door to go into to meet the party or the administrator or the teacher or whatever their visit is. So that was a significant improvement paid for with bond funds. The second vulnerability assessment was recently completed, I believe in the summer of, or fall of 2018, and that was addressing more perimeter vulnerability. So we are looking at perimeter fencing and gate access, and while we haven't done significant construction or work on that yet, we're planning that out over a multi-year time to address that aspect. Plus, we're also looking at updating surveillance cameras. We have surveillance video equipment in all of our sites, both internally and externally, but we're looking to upgrade that. So those are the primary areas with which we're trying to address, continually to address. Everyone knows, you read the paper about, the various situations that occur in schools today. So we're doing our best to address those on a prevention model with respect to both interior and exterior access to the facilities. So I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you. Councilman?
Let me start with the obvious. Isn't it awful that you have to go through this?
I would agree completely. Yeah, the environment today, but you have to, we put 1,400 kids through our school doors every day, and we're doing everything we possibly can to ensure that the safety and security of the schools, the students, is the absolute utmost. So.
I guess my question is, who does the assessments? Are these professionals that come in?
Yes, it's Paul Penzone is with Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and he worked for the Counterintelligence Office. And so his department and staff that accompanied him performed the assessments, generated the reports, provided us with reports, and actually reviewed those reports with called our DIRT team, District Emergency Response Team. And he summarized both the data, photographs, anecdotal information, summary, and he's helped us kind of prioritize which projects we're undertaking over the next couple of years. In addition, that our plans have also been uploaded into ACTIC, which is it's a state agency managing safety and security of a variety of both schools, municipalities, and other entities. So we filed our plans with them. So if there was an emergency, they would actually have demographic information about the schools available, actually site plans, so they could plan if there was an emergency. They actually have information how they would respond to the emergency.
Thank you. I'm sorry,
Yeah,
Councilman?
quick question, Dr. Allen. I know you mentioned the perimeter security and ongoing work possibly there. Do you have anything specific lined up for this summer in terms of capital projects or security, or you done for now?
In the area of security, and this is where, reluctant to reveal all the specificities of how we're approaching, the specific details of security, but surveillance systems. And it starts with upgrading our server system. So from an electronic standpoint and from memory storage, we'll have updated servers where when we acquire, as we progressively acquire new surveillance cameras, we will have the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure capacity to maintain the storage of that information. So that really is the first phase. In addition, we've also just upgraded specific points of access. Some we had, let's say, more padlocked areas. We're moving to push bars and for certain gate access. And some of that is security and safety on both ends, so students can evacuate the facilities in a fire drill or an emergency. So those two areas are the primary areas that we're focusing on at the moment.
Councilman Spellich?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The mayor and I had the opportunity to be invited to a school safety conference on Friday in Phoenix, attended by school superintendents from all over the state. There are probably 200 people there. According to the event organizers, it was the first time that there was so many different agencies there talking about school safety. The retired director of the U.S. Secret Service was there. The behavioral profiling unit of the FBI was there, as well as Sheriff Penzone. They also had a Green Beret Special Forces guy that does school evaluations. What was drilled into us was the need for schools to drill the students in active shooters, and how important it is to get the kids, regardless of their age, ingrained into what to do during an active shooter scenario. Also, they are talking about the definite need for school districts to have a security director. In the room, they did a survey of show of hands of how many school district superintendents that were there that had athletic directors. And every single person in the room raised their hand, all the superintendents, because everybody has an athletic director. And then they said, how many of you have security directors? And out of that whole room, there was 3 people. And they were very surprised by that. So I know that you're constrained like we are on the council with budgets and restricted by funds and everything. But I think that in the age that we're in and the way that things are going, school shootings and incidents in schools have increased every year. They go up. So the possibility of possibly looking into a director of security, they were saying that the director of security could also do threat assessments with students, because the behavioral science unit of the FBI, there was a pattern that all of these students, all of these shooters did prior to the shooting. You know, were they loners? Were they video game junkies locked in their room, collecting weapons, bringing weapons to school? So there was a pattern leading up to all of these shootings that if would have caught and possibly intervened, there might not have been a shooting. So it was a great conference. So overwhelming that they're going to have another one next year. They're going to try to put, I think you should, if you can, attend, because it was really eye-opening. I mean, for a 24-year career in law enforcement, there was things that I learned that I didn't know. So I think that maybe in the future, if you guys would think about maybe a director of security position, that would be something that might be beneficial to the district and the students.
Yes, thank you so much. We would certainly consider that. We do partake in a variety also. District staff partakes in a variety of preparedness or safety meetings or conferences. We also work with our property liability insurance carriers called the Trust. And we attend annual, they're called regional consortium meetings, where we also interact with law enforcement from both school districts and municipalities. And we have staff, transportation staff, and school administration staff and myself receive training and discussions on a variety of contemporary or recent security upgrades. So we do participate with that. We also engage with Arizona Department of Ed, the School Safety and Preparedness Office. They visited our schools several times over the past 3 years, and they review our emergency response plans too. So it is a multi-pronged approach, and it involves existing staff that we have. The other component that was referenced earlier, the school resource officer, Officer Brooks and Officer Miller, we have access to them during all the school hours. Officer Brooks is there Monday through Thursday. Officer Miller is there on Fridays, and both they're granted, we share that officer amongst all 3 sites, but our sites are pretty close together, so their response time for various things is pretty quick. We also do threat assessments. The threat assessments that are performed at the school level, if a student exhibits some sort of behaviors or some sort of actions or aggressive behavior, the school assessment team, or the threat assessment team, is brought together typically under the auspices of the lead of the school psychologist and either the principal or the assistant principal of the building. And we do engage in those, and once the assessment is done, there's a plan in place for addressing that student behavior, either through, it could be a discipline plan, it could be behavioral plan, it could be limiting certain access to that student in school. So, you know, again, a multi-pronged approach. We do training ourselves, and certainly we'll consider that. I think Mayor Dickey invited us to that recently, but we had just had some conflicts. But we do engage in those particular trainings. We also do lockdowns, periodic lockdown practices. We also mix the lockdown with the fire drill. It's one of the significant things today. How do you, if there's a fire drill and a lockdown, what is your response to that? And the active shooters, often now, I think a lot of the active shooters are students themselves as opposed to someone from the community. And so the concept of do you stay in shelter in place, or do you run, fight, hide, all the new kind of responses. We practice those, and we'll continue to practice those. In fact, I was at Grand Canyon University yesterday for a superintendent's symposium, and they offer also a free training to us on active shooter drill, and we'll pursue that in the fall through their services. So again, I agree completely. We need dedicated staff, but we all know the complications of finding a specific staff member for that narrow type of responsibility, but we'll certainly pursue every avenue we can take through training, through practices, through responses, and through the preventions.
I also wanted to make you aware that what we found we had no idea about is there's also a program in Arizona where it will teach teachers how to handle trauma wounds. So it's a free program that teachers can go to. I don't remember exactly who facilitates it, but they said that they found that teachers willing to go to these things, you basically would be trained like a medic in the Marine Corps or whatever for trauma. If there was they would have a trauma pack and be able to render first aid. It's a free program offered to teachers. So I don't know if any of your teachers would be interested in that, but there is a program and it's free, and they will train teachers how to.
Actually, again, the trust, our liability insurance carrier, just within the past 2 weeks at one of the Wednesday early releases, they did a training specifically for the high school teachers on doing that exact thing, responding to emergencies and physical injury. Actually, every teacher in the room got taught how to apply a tourniquet. They actually brought in dummies with injuries that the teachers actually repaired or responded to, with given the limited information they could get in that training. So we'll continue to pursue that, but that was just actually a recent activity that the high school teachers did.
Great. I wanted to say too, Dr. Allen, because I'd given you the article about it, was that the conference that I attended, the ASBA conference, with regard to safety, was a different, I want to say, attitude or vision or sharing with regard to FERPA. Because remember, the teachers, nobody wants to share information, but it really had nothing to do with, the grades. That has to do with the grades and stuff. And the thing is the behavior assessments. If the teachers see something or something's going on, they really should feel more free. They shouldn't be afraid of FERPA, because they should feel a little bit more free of sharing some of that stuff, because that's a lot of the assessments are a lot of things that you can pick up on. How is the student acting? Is there a potential problem or something like that?
Definitely. So our school district has a rich history in this. I think it was 1997 or 98. Our plan was used as a model for the state of Arizona at the time. So it's always been something, even before all of these horrible disasters have happened. You mentioned ASPA, that this conference was given by the Arizona Education and Business Coalition, and it was in partnership with Sheriff's Department and ASA, the Arizona School Administrators Association. one of the speakers there was the former superintendent of Sandy Hook in Newtown. And it was quite emotional, and as you can imagine, but also the lessons learned. And a lot of it is really aligning with some of the things that you're saying. But I was surprised, David, that he said that this was the first time and that every state across the country should be modeling what we were doing, what they were doing with this conference. But the list of things, obviously being confidential, right? So you have a plan, but it has to be confidential. But the fact that they mentioned it should be digitized, which is what you were saying, it's hard for these things to be second nature to you because you don't always go back to them. I know the council even goes through those tabletop exercises, but then, you know, to remember those, it's not easy. So that was one of the things he really did drill in, having meaningful drills. And reunification should something happen, and I know that the school district has that, and where to meet, that kind of thing, like families do. It was really quite informative, and I learned a lot, and hopefully there'll be some materials online or something, because I found myself scribbling and trying to remember everything they said, but I'm sure it's very much in line with what you're already doing. And any way that the community can help, you know, parents need to know what David was talking about. They had this website, studentthreatassessment.org, that the man from the FBI said that, and he said, if you get nothing else out of this, tell people to go there. There's a lot to do with the behavior, like you were saying. This is a multi-pronged kind of approach. You know, you might think, oh, I don't want to be soft about it, but it does have a lot to do with isolation. And he mentioned adults being around kids a lot and encouraging them, or even just smiling at them makes a difference. And so it's a combination of hardening the buildings, law enforcement. I just wanted to mention too, and this is like the next item about the school resource officer, that we are fortunate because ours, and you had this in your report, because we are able to have the flexibility and have 2 resource officers be involved the way they are over at the school district. And we've also, on our side, had conversations with Maricopa County Sheriff's Department about our contract, and we all agree it's a pretty hefty amount that we pay for it, and they've been so receptive to tailoring it, because I think the expenses are very legitimate, but how do we use that in the best way for our community? And so far they've been really, really helpful, specifically about some of these school district items. So if anybody has anything else they'd like to mention about that, because I kind of skipped to the school resource officer. Anybody have any comments about that?
Again, I'll just thank the town for providing the school resource officer. It definitely makes an impact to have our own resource officer who gets to know the kids, who gets to know the situations, knows the school campuses. And while we share the resource officer over our 3 campuses, I think it definitely makes a difference to have the presence of MCSO on our campus.
Definitely. Thank you. Next, I think, is the Safe Routes to Schools. That's definitely a combination effort. Grady?
Yeah, so we thought we'd address this. We've done this in the past, but it's probably time for us to look at, as you know, the council's been very concerned about pedestrian safety in the community. We've had some very unfortunate incidents the past several months. And so one of the areas we want to definitely protect our youth as they are going to and from school, particularly walking to and from school. So there's a program called Safe Routes to Schools, and you're able to get, a community is able to get some funding from both typically the feds, but also the governor's office on highway safety. And so one of the things we're going to be working very closely is with Dr. Allen and staff to try to identify areas between the elementary schools, the middle school, and also the high school, and try to make those zones safer for pedestrians to walk to and from school. And in some cases, it might involve some additional improvements that might have to take place. In addition to just like crosswalks, we might be looking at some other things like maybe safer areas to walk and try to encourage signage and such so that people maybe are on one side of the street so they don't have to cross the street. One area, just to let you know, we're currently working on trying to get a crosswalk on the south side of Palisades between Golden Eagle and Fountain Hills Boulevard so that you don't have to have necessarily a mid intersection crossing. Because right now, I think that that's probably not the safest place for kids to cross. So we're looking at getting that done, and that's going to be done probably in the next 3 months or so. But we're going to be looking at some safe routes, and you'll be hearing more about this because we'll be working with both our council and our governing board, keeping them informed on it. But we just want to make you aware of this because I think that all is part of the bigger picture as it relates to students. It's not just on campus and in the classroom, but it's also getting them to and from school safely.
Two things I'd like to address there. One, on our end, we also, I think, need to do a better job of reminding our students to use crosswalks because it's not even just, unsafe intersections. It's our students who are running across the road where they shouldn't be. So again, we need to remind them that one, it's the law that they need to cross in crosswalks, and two, that it's for their safety. The other thing, Grady, could you address the crosswalk at Hampstead? Hampstead. And sometimes, obviously if someone pushes the button, it flashes, but other times there's nobody there and the lights were flashing. At one point they were covered with burlap.
We did have some issues with the controller there that went out, and so best of my knowledge, it's still working. Are you not seeing it, observing it working now, or?
It does work periodically. I haven't witnessed it, when there's nobody there, but just, it seemed like it sometimes, as you were approaching, the light would start flashing, there was nobody in the crosswalk, and obviously we had an incident there last year. So.
Right. I'll double back with the stuff and find out what's going on with that. My understanding is that they did make the repair to that. And just for everybody's knowledge, we did fully investigate through the sheriff's office what happened on that unfortunate incident with the jogger runner that was unfortunately killed at that location. Just for everyone's knowledge, after it was fully investigated, it turned out that the driver who hit the person was actually in the street, and the person was typically a jogger in that area. The driver was blinded by the sunrise coming up, and so unfortunately the sun hitting him, it just at that particular moment that person was there, the pedestrian was there. Very unfortunate. I'm not sure we could have done anything to prevent it, but it really brought to our attention after the incident. I went back and I looked and saw that there was a sidewalk that should be there that's not there. Also, we had about that same time period, we did have that crossing light not properly working. And so we went back and we started talking about how we can make that intersection safer. But also we want to try to get just the normal walkers, not just the kids that walk to school. We want to also encourage them to go all the way down. If the crosswalk is there, it's better for them to actually cross at a regular intersection at Golden Eagle, because there's a lot of people that walk over to Golden Eagle Park or walk into the neighborhood. So we really want to encourage people not to do a mid intersection crossing. I know the mayor just brought it to my attention, and I've seen it myself. It's very unsafe at the Four Peaks condos right in front of Safeway. There's a lot of people that cross midsection right there, and we're going to be doing a little mini traffic study to look at that and see what recommendations will come out of that. I'm sure we'll probably have another mid-intersection crossing. Probably not going to be the ultimate, it's never safe to cross in the middle of an intersection, even if you have all these safety features.
Right.
So we're going to probably come back to the council at some time with some recommendations on how to make that safer, because people, despite that not being safe and not being convenient to walk to the intersection where there is a crosswalk, they still cross there. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure kids probably also cross there.
Absolutely.
As well. So.
Any other comments? I have to do Facebook community mention the fact that there's been some pictures on there of these 3D looking.
Oh, I saw
Have
that.
you seen that? So I don't know how practical that is or anything, but I just thought that was interesting because it sure makes you look twice when the crosswalk looks
And it
like
was
it's.
kids that designed it.
Yeah, it was in Midford, Massachusetts,
Yeah,
right
it was
where,
really
where
interesting to
Tufts
look
is.
at. Yeah.
So, again, I think it was, one of those things that you see, and everybody has been really helpful trying to give us suggestions, because it's just, I don't know, it's just a lot of things happening over last year and this year, and we want to do our best to keep people safe, and especially our kids. The next item is about their safety, also bullying, excuse me, and social media. I know I kind of put this on the agenda because I've just been hearing so much about social media and the ramifications of it in so many ways, what it's doing to families, what is that, and I just saw today that Diane Sawyer's having a show on Friday night about it, and it had some little kid, really little kid, telling the mom to put down the phone, pay attention. But anyway, there was a lot of that in this conference that we went to also, talking about the isolation, the fact that in the maybe the old days you'd go, and even if there was bullying, excuse me, you'd get your lunch stolen or that kind of thing. But when you got home, you were, it was like a haven, you were safe and it was done. But now there's none of that. And one of the things, and Sherry, I think you'd really be interested, I don't have her name, I do right here, but that she specializes in some of these issues that you deal with in your job, and talking about suicide and talking about the development of these brains not being what we would think, like, well, there's always tomorrow. It's not always there. There's impulsive behavior that leads to suicide sometimes with this level of bullying. They don't have that self-worth. So it's a whole new world in a lot of different ways, and I don't know whether the school has any classes like that, and I don't know how you deal with it really, and maybe with your teacher in-services and things like that, but it's certainly something all parents would benefit from also.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dickey. Bullying has been around for a long time. It takes on a new face today with the modalities that it can be inflicted upon, or how harassment can be engaged in, with whether it's student to student, adult to adult, or student to adult, children to adult. So not to always fall back on policy, but the district does have school board policy on bullying and harassment. The policy it actually defines what bullying and cyberbullying is. It also references the discipline actions that the district has at its availability or resources with response to that. Also, the bullying and harassment policy or practices are outlined very clearly in the student parent handbook, which is provided electronically to virtually all parents and students. It defines bullying and harassment, and we've even included hazing under that umbrella, and the methods of inflicting this type of behavior, inflicting this unacceptable behavior on students. It's in verbal form, written form, graphic form, electronic, sexual, racial, or physical. So really the full gamut of the type of harassment that can be inflicted upon another is try to be well defined so that both school administration, staff, and other students can report this. But it's not just policy, it's what we're doing within our schools to try to teach kids beyond what they learn in the home, try to teach them the types of behaviors and to build the types of positive relationships. We did it was called the Be Kind Assembly. We presented the Be Kind Assembly in March to Fountain Hills Middle School and McDowell Mountain Elementary kids, kindergarten through 5th grade. We bused all of them to the high school for a presentation by the Be Kind Project. It was a pumped up kind of a dance, a motivational activity. And then at the end, the kids all signed a pledge. Actually, the kids and the adults in attendance signed a pledge. It's called the Kindness Pledge. And the essence of the pledge was kids pledged to be encouraging, supportive, positive, helpful, honest, considerate, thankful, respectful. So that was one component we did with those students. In addition, on May 14th at the middle school, through the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, there will be a presentation for parents and community called Bullying Awareness for Parents. And that will be presented on May 14th at 6 o'clock at the middle school. And again, specifically, the actual title is called Stand Up to Put Downs. So again, from the preventive and instructional side and the teaching side and working on the value-added side of what we do, working with kids as soon as possible to teach them those proper behaviors and encourage, the more respectful, cooperative, collaborative environment. So those are some of the activities, either policies, activities, or initiatives that we're currently doing.
That's great. Councilman?
Pledges, lectures, and so on are fine, but I'm a bit of a skeptic in this sense. Bullies are bullies. And you can sign up, you can ask kids to sign pledges. It doesn't mean a thing if you're a bully. Is there any way for someone, a child, to report a bully in total confidence so they can get hopefully some kind of relief?
Well, in each school, we have a school counselor or school counselors where students can report, both either in written form, they can pass a note, or they can go see that counselor and report confidentially, such that the incident can be investigated by the school administration or the counselor. So yes, each school does have a counselor, and in McDowell Mountain Elementary, we have a full-time counselor. We also have one in the middle school. We have 2 counselors, and through the Fort McDowell grant, social worker counselor also at the high school. So they are available for students, and students are encouraged to come forward, report anything to an adult, so it can be investigated, can be looked into. So they can do it in an anonymous fashion.
I wanted to also say, and Dr. Allen, you can expand upon this, is that we have the pillars that we start teaching at McDowell Mountain while they're young. And I'm not going to remember every pillar. That's the problem. The character counts pillars, and they have they do it. One week is one of the pillars. Another week, one of them is citizenship. But they're already starting at the preschool level with the pillars when they're going to school there.
And this is something that, is the community can certainly help with, too. Councilwoman LaCrone was just finding out a bunch of stuff about some things that other cities can do. It's certainly not a problem that is only in the schools and that kids are only doing. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we do have very good partnerships and a support system as a community. So we did have a special presentation last fall that was sponsored by the PTO that was specific to social media, that was available to all parents to attend at the Learning Center. That was a very excellent presentation that covered a lot of the details about how kids can get sucked into social media and what that can do to them emotionally and behaviorally. We have a great partnership with the Coalition, and a lot of their influence about drug and alcohol awareness, the information that they provide to our students also carries over into that emotional, behavioral, bullying type of thing. And at the high school, I know that we have had at least one incident in the last school year where students suspected that a student was doing something. They just thought the student was behaving kind of strangely. It turned out to be nothing, but they reported it. It was investigated. It was, seen to not be a threat, but all of the students are very aware, and I think it's unfortunate that they have to be aware, that they kind of have to be watching their peers and be concerned about if somebody's going to be a threat. But they know how to escalate those issues to school staff so that they're addressed and taken care of quickly.
And I agree with Mr. Magazine. I mean, we can have them sign whatever we want, and kids, obviously, when they're at school, you know, they're going to agree to it. We do have our sports teams. Every player has to sign an anti-hazing document that says that they won't haze other players. We had one incident where someone felt they, you know, were kind of being bullied. You know, the coach took immediate action to it, and the player was suspended until, you know, it got resolved, and it was resolved, and there was no hazing incident. But you know, at the end of the day, the biggest thing is we can educate, we can document, we can provide counselors, which we are doing. As Dr. Allen said, we didn't have a full-time counselor at McDowell Mountain until recently, and now we've made sure that there's a full-time counselor there, that there's 2 full-time counselors going to be at the Four Peaks Middle School, and that at the high school, you know, that we have counselors and a behavioral psychologist. So there are people in place for those kids, but the biggest thing is at home, that we have to rely on parents to educate their kids and to track social media and to track those text messages, because once they leave our campus, there's only so much that the school can do, and we can educate as much as possible and be an open door for those kids to come and report things to us. But we also need the parents to be receptive to that and to make sure that they're open to the kids reporting it to them as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to Nadia's point, I would say Fountain Hills Coalition, we are so lucky to have a partnership with them. They are an absolutely amazing group to work with, and the Above That Club that they have is exactly what Nadia said. It's about finding things that are positive, which also means doing the right thing and figuring out how to be a friend. And the high school club currently has 60 or 70 members, which is a really large percentage. So, you know, the kids are seeking that out. And I will say, as a school board, we have really, obviously we focus on academics, but we've also really started to push for understanding social emotional health of our students, because we're finding that's really important. And we're so lucky that we were able to get the elementary school counselor to be a full-time position. And one of the things that she does that's wonderful is her little dog. She brings a dog to school, and it's buddies. And what they do is the perfect thing. It's not about no. It's when they see something that's nice, the students are later than rewarded. Come up, we have an assembly, come up. You got this award because we saw you do this. So it's really trying to focus on what the students are doing well. But we are taking it very seriously, understanding the social emotional health of our children, not just their academics.
Anything to say there about the coalition? Mike?
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a board member for the coalition, it's wonderful to hear the comments, the positivity surrounding that, and I know Shelley and Maria and the fellow board members just love working with the district as well and the town and presenting a lot of those programs, because one of the key strategies of prevention is working on this kind of stuff, so if kids feel good about themselves and et cetera, so they don't revert to drugs and alcohol. The only question I have is I'm wondering if the district would be willing to host a Be Kind program for all Facebook users in Fountain Hills. Just throwing it out there.
I'll second that.
I do have to say, though, because I work for another district, that there aren't any districts that have a coalition like Fountain Hills Coalition here. There are not. This is really very special to be able to have it, and it does a lot for our schools. I do believe that.
And same with the PTO, they host a Youth Frontiers Kindness Retreat at the middle school. I think, is it 4th grade that does the Kindness Retreat? That is specifically designed for that age level. And then the seminar that Nadia was talking about was actually 2 different seminars. The first one was geared towards your high school children and really focused on which I said, but really focused on boys. There was a lot of information about boys and the suicide rate of boys and how we can really help our sons. And then it obviously included girls as well. But then the second seminar the same day was primarily geared towards your elementary school children and educating them on social media. So it was very interesting.
That's great. And I give you credit because one of the things that David and I learned was that Arizona is the worst state for counselor to pupil. So I don't remember the number, but so yeah, it was a lot. So that, I mean, recognizing that, that's a wonderful thing. Anything? Oh yes, Councilman.
I just wanted to piggyback off of what the president of the school board said. In my current position, I'm an investigator assigned to the Department of Education in the teacher misconduct unit. And the amount of social media traffic that happens that's discovered by parents is staggering. I would just like to caution any parent, I don't have children, but I'd like to caution any parent that if you have a child, it is absolutely imperative that you have the password to your child's phone, the password to all of their accounts, Twitter and Snapchat. People that believe that the Snapchat app is something that you text and then it disappears. It never disappears. I can get a subpoena and have every Snapchat from the time that you opened your account. So I just think it's absolutely imperative. The amount of misconduct discovered by parents who report to us inappropriate relationships between students and teachers is staggering. So, and then when you get these when you get these subpoenas and you see what the kids are saying to other kids and what's being chatted back and forth and everything is, it's just worrisome. So I would love for you guys to stress to the parents that, I have parents say, well, they don't want to give me the password. Well, who pays for the phone? You know what I mean? So no password, no phone. I mean, it's just imperative that parents, I don't mean to harp on it, but to monitor social media for their kids and see what they're saying and everything, because I think you would be shocked. It's an eye-opener to see. I know I was shocked, and really nothing shocks me. So I just want to stress that if you guys could take back to the students and the teachers and everything, that they need to drill home to parents, parent-teacher nights or whatever, to monitor the Snapchat, Twitter, WhatsApp, all these other things that I don't know anything about. It would really be beneficial to your child.
I agree. Wow. Thank you. We can move on, if you'd like, to the discussion of emergency shelters. Is that you, Grady?
Yes, if we can have the fire chief come up. We have an emergency operations plan, and this pretty much provides guidance to the town to all the procedural areas when we have an incident or we have natural disasters or so forth. It provides us guidance on how to react. And one of the things that the chief and I were talking about the other day was that it would be really pretty neat if we worked with the school district on possibly having a couple of facilities that might be used as shelters. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and kind of talk about the emergency operations plan and how this might fit into it. And this might be basically a future intergovernmental agreement that we might work up.
Good evening. I'd worked in the past with Dr. Allen. We'd met and kind of discussed some of the emergency operation plans, how we can kind of help each other out on some of those things. We also met with the American Red Cross, who does shelter evaluations in Maricopa County Emergency Management, to go over the facilities and what would work best. And along with the facilities and transportation director for the school district, what was determined was that probably the best viable spot would be the middle school, based on the facilities there, the kitchen facilities, the size of the cafeteria. The high school was not as
beneficial a spot because of the different tiers and the different areas. And not to say that it's not ADA compliant, but the middle school probably fits better for that. There's also segregated locker rooms, which the grade school doesn't have, or the elementary school doesn't have. And those are all things that are part of the assessment for the shelters. And really the middle school came out as the highest part. So what we would need to figure out would be in what event we would use it. I know it's always a little bit tougher during the school year to use shelters. We found that to be a problem when some of the fires that we had up on the rim, where it happened right around the time that school was starting. It kind of throws a little bit of a wrench into what you're trying to do, and as well as helping the community, and you've always got to have another backup for that. I think we feel pretty lucky that for the most part our threats are fairly limited. Might be more of a natural disaster, might be more of a power outage during the hotter times, which for us would help out because you're typically a little bit more available on your facilities at that point. But we do have the challenge of not having emergency power, and that's where working with SRP to kind of reroute some of the power. In our conversations on the emergency management side of things with SRP, they always identify areas in your town that require more power, like Fountain View Village, hospitals, schools, and trying to keep those areas up and running, and especially if you've got them designated as a shelter or a cooling station or just a place to come get out of the storm. So I think we've had a pretty good relationship in the past, and it's always there to continue.
So, yeah, so that's really what we're just trying to discuss and bring this topic to you, because I do think it's going to come back to both the town council and the governing board for us to have this. And most likely in our region, it's probably more or less a cooling center. You might find where we might have some brownouts that might occur, and we need to have the ability for people to seek shelter to cool off. And this has been in other parts of the country. California, I know, has had this happen when they were having those rolling brownouts during the peak season of the summer. So that's probably most likely what would happen, but you never know. You never know what might happen. So, but the one thing that we both have as weaknesses, both as the town and also the school district, is that we don't have backup generation for the facilities. And I think that was a little bit of an oversight when they built the both our community center, for instance. We do have it in the town hall here, but town hall is very limited. This room here that we're in right now is supposed to be the emergency operations center. So if we ever had an incident, this is basically where the staff and I would be, as well as possibly the superintendent if there was something where we need to invite the school district in. And so we do have backup generation that's supposed to power up this room and our server room upstairs. But I do think that this is something we'll be bringing back. But we just wanted to bring this up for discussion so that you kind of knew in advance why this will be coming forward to you in the future. So I think it's very important and will be something we'll be addressing.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Next, talk about teen court. Is that Grady?
I'll keep this short, but Judge Milton, I see, is here in the audience, and this is a program that's near and dear to his heart. So he's going to come up and speak a little bit about this program and how we can maybe work closer with the school district on maybe jump-starting this program a little bit more and have more participation from the school, from the students.
Mayor, Council, Governing Board, I'm Judge Melton, Town of Fountain Hills. The Teen Court Program, if you're not aware, is a program that's in essence amounts to a diversion program for a lot of juveniles across Maricopa County. What happens is juveniles from across the county get in trouble. They enter some type of plea agreement, say they did whatever they said they were going to do, they did, and they usually go to teen court as diversion. At teen court, what happens is you generally have students from a local high school or other communities surrounding get together. They have, in essence, a prosecutor who gets to talk, what happened and did you really do it? A defense attorney, in essence, that gets to say, tries to do the mitigation, in essence, as to why this person shouldn't be punished to the full extent of whatever they decide. And you have a jury. Basically, the jury gets to decide what the punishment will be. A lot of times it's simply writing a letter of apology, sit on a teen court, something of that nature, but it gets them involved in the community, try to realize what they've done and what they should do to go forward. Here in Fountain Hills, we had a program with the high school some years back that was, in essence, fairly flourishing. What happened is that over the years, I guess, enrollment dropped and participation dropped with it because the student advisor at that point left, and there was no interest generated from that point on to keep the program going, at least from the Fountain Hills High School. The program is still going here locally in this court. It meets once a month, but generally the participants come from Desert Mountain High School, just along the way. So they sort of picked up the slack where Fountain Hills fell through. I know Teen Court has reached out to the high school a few times, but without a faculty advisor, someone they can reach out and talk to, they really didn't get anywhere. So what we're hoping to do is to try to generate some interest, to try to get the program back online, to get the Fountain Hills students participating back in this program. And that's pretty much why I'm here. Questions?
Dr. Allen, is there someone that at the high school that they could speak to, or would you like to help facilitate that?
Yes, certainly we'll bring in the assistant principal as, and the counseling services as probably the most immediate liaison to work with that, and that can be done. Getting them connected with your office is a pretty simple task, and we'll get on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I would like to definitely see that continue and have some of our local students participate.
I would too. It's always a pleasure to sit I preside over a lot of the teen courts when they come in. I find it interesting to see how they approach matters, and I go, would I do that? No, probably not. But it's youth versus someone who's been around a few times. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is about a Student of the Month, which was a project of somebody that was in leadership, a former superintendent, was his project, and just coincidentally, Kiwanis sent me this, which is called Mayor's Top Teens in Las Cruces, and it's very similar. It reminded me of the same kind of deal. So basically, I think it's a great idea. You probably realize there's parents that never set foot in here, and then there are people in the community who never set foot in the schools. And you know, in the old days when we used to have the theater shows there, people would be there and they say, this is the first time I ever walked into McDowell Mountain School. So basically, I don't know the ins and outs of how it would work necessarily, because we'd have to do it so that it was easy enough for everybody and it wasn't loading anybody down with extra work. But a Student of the Month that would probably go not in December, so it'd be like maybe September through November, then off for the month, and then get done in May. But it's a good way, I think, to have kids, young people involved coming here. Their parents would come here when they got it, and but I think the criteria and all that would come from the school district, a teacher, or however it would be set up. And he has great ideas about it. Maybe you've already spoken to him, but no. But I think it's a great idea just in general how it works out. I don't know, but if you're amiable to it or amenable to it, then maybe we would move it forward. Mike?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. As a member of the Noon Kiwanis Club, we have the Pacesetters program. I'm not sure what the Las Cruces program is about, but in essence, we have 2 students of the month that we recognize pretty much, as you said, September through May, taking probably 1 or 2 months off, depending on our schedules. But and I know they do send out emails and they get nominations from the teachers, and they select 2 students each month. Typically it's a male and female, but not always. And so perhaps that could be tailored into this program or piggybacked or something to coordinate that. So some of that's already kind of been going on, but it's just obviously at the Kiwanis level. So they come to our lunches and we recognize them once a month, that kind of thing. So.
Great, thank you.
One comment.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah, at the last council meeting, we discussed the possibility of a bonus for one individual based on performance, which I have serious problems with.
You mean a salesman?
I'm sorry?
Salesman? A salesman?
I would just urge that you be very careful about keeping it from being political. That's what often happens with bonuses. The favored person gets a bonus. And so as you set up something like this, I don't know how you guard against it, But if it becomes political, then the students will be really upset, even at the person who gets the award.
Could be, Mayor.
Vice Mayor?
I would hope it's based on the merit of the student's performance in school, whether it be academic, with their sports, with their leadership. I think it's very clear, and I think it's a great idea to have a student of the month. We have a teacher of the month in our Four Peaks Rotary. We recognize a teacher. We ask the principals to come forward and identify teachers that they feel are excelling, and I don't think there's anything wrong with recognizing someone that's doing an excellent job, and it's encouraging to others to try to emulate what that person's doing. So I think it's a great idea.
Thank you. Councilman?
I just want to make sure you understand, I'm not necessarily against it. I just want to make sure it's done right. It can take a significant amount of thought to make it really work. And I know you won't take it lightly, but you're going to have to come up with criteria and so on and so forth. But I just want to make that statement. I'm not against it. I just think you have to be very careful to do it right.
Thank you.
I think it's very important as well to do it right. I think that if we come up with, not we, I don't mean myself, but if we come up with, the town and the district come up with the criteria up front, so that we know what we're dealing with, then we don't have to have that problem that you're talking about, Councilman. But if we just do it and it turns out to be political, then we have a problem.
Exactly.
But if we come up with the criteria right up front before we do anything, then I think that we can do it. I don't think that these gentlemen, I've forgotten what he said, I think he said the Rotary or something. Yeah,
Something they say.
I don't think that they have too many problems, with what they do for teachers, and I know this gentleman over here does not, because I'm part of his little, I think they kicked me out. But I think, that we can reach out and, but make sure that we do it up front. And I think that's very important, because if we don't, it will become political. And we cannot afford to let it become political. But with all these brains around here, we can do it.
Councilwoman? Sorry.
Mayor, I think it's a wonderful idea, and maybe so we're not duplicating other efforts with Students of the Month, Teachers of the Month, so forth. We could add in our criteria something like, in addition to some civic duty or something that helps the student stand out, so that we're honoring someone, maybe even different than the other entities.
I
Just
agree.
an idea.
Yep, thank you.
And there are, with the Kiwanis Terrific Kid, I think they do Terrific Kid each week, and then there's, the pace setters, and is pace setter at the middle school too?
Falcon Leaders.
Falcon Leaders, okay. So each school kind of has its own thing, so there's a lot of criteria, but I agree with Councilwoman that I really think adding some civic duty in there based on the fact that it comes from the town, it's not just academic, would be a great part of the criteria. And sometimes, some of the kids get a financial, award, but sometimes just that award and being able to use it on their resumes for college and things is enough, that they were nominated or won. So I think it would be great.
Thank you. And be little kids too, so there would be different ages, and so, thank you.
We can never recognize the good in our schools enough.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you. The next item is about EVIT, and I know that's just like a huge topic. The specific reason I wanted to talk about it was because of some efforts that EVIT is doing, and they're beginning, and we had this little fact sheet here, just to talk about the fact that they want to get students more, in the business accelerators, Arizona Business Advisors want to get students involved. And I keep bringing up former superintendents that I'm meeting, which kind of gives you the idea of the kind of folks that we do have in Fountain Hills that we can rely on. But another former superintendent had, I think, approached the school and EVIT about forming a partnership, maybe having graduation that would include CTE, career education, and in addition to the conventional diploma. So there's a lot of good things happening there. They're kind of rolling out a process. This would be the Arizona Business Advisors working with EVIT. you probably realize that with the watchmakers and other things going on there, that there's kids there that are making videos and radio shows and all kinds of really interesting and neat things. So we obviously want to encourage that, but the subject is bigger than that. So does anybody have anything else that they would like to talk about when it comes to EVIT and the partnerships that we have going on here? Does this all, yes, sir?
I'll just comment, as we move forward into next year, so the EVIT plays two roles with respect to Fountain Hills High School. We have the EVIT Fountain Hills campus at the Four Peaks, the prior Four Peaks site. We also are providing CTE classes through EVIT on the Fountain Hills High School campus. So, but at the EVIT Four Peaks site next year, we're moving forward with nursing, video photography, vet tech, and cybersecurity. Those are kind of the designated four, we'll call it signature programs that we're currently recruiting kids for at that location next year. So I think they're high interest programs. They also have the potential of, creating internship possibilities for kids with respect to participating in those programs. So the intent would continue moving forward with EVIT, at a high rate of speed, recruiting more kids to participate in those programs. Well, we also do get some kids from Desert Mountain, so bringing some kids from Scottsdale. Probably Cave Creek is also gone down of the road of creating a JTED program. They'll offer some JTED or CTE classes on their campus, but also kids could go to the Mesa campus. Our goal is to hopefully be an intermediary location for some of those kids. And I've had conversations with the superintendent of Cave Creek, and we've engaged the CTE director in Cave Creek too. So we're looking to expand that, encourage more kids, but actually those programs that I just outlined, that came as a result of surveying about 200 kids in the high school just within the past 2 months. What would be the courses or programs of interest that would attract the most kids to the EVIT Four Peaks or EVIT Fountain Hills campus? So.
Can I just ask Dr. Allen on that nursing program, is that going to be a licensed practical nursing program or is still the certified nurse assistant?
Actually, I don't know the details of that right now, but so.
I'm pretty sure it's a CNA program.
Okay.
Thank you. I can't emphasize enough the leadership, the 3 classes that have gone through, and it's one of the things I haven't been able to do as much as I would like to. Haven't had the time yet, but there are so many projects there, including EVIT, the Student of the Month. These are people that have come up with these great ideas that benefit the community as a whole in the school district. And one of them was a skills gap, and then there was another one that did a certified work ready. There were people like Vicki and Tom. They just have come together and put together something that we don't want to just have on a shelf now. So we all need to kind of pitch in and look at, I don't want to say take advantage, but to look at these things and see how in a practical way we can use them for the school district and for the community as a whole. There's just a lot of good people doing a lot of things and coming up with great ideas in a positive way, and the EVIT thing, the Student of the Month, grant writing, it's just been amazingly eye-opening to see the effort that's been going into all of these things. The last thing that we had here has to do with volunteer service hours, which might overlap a little bit with what you were saying about the civic, but you all still have the 24-hour requirement, right?
Correct, that they have to have 24 volunteer hours, community service hours to graduate.
Great. And then Grady, do we on our side have opportunities for any of these kids to sign up to fulfill some of those hours?
Absolutely. I did find out from our staff that sometimes we're challenged because unfortunately the hours and the way it's managed at the school district, it's it's decentralized, so the kids will go to an advisor or a teacher or academic advisor or a coach and get them to sign off on some of the ideas. So sometimes for us, for our ability to utilize the students for volunteer service, it's sometimes a little bit challenging because we don't have like a one go-to kind of person at the school district. So, but we certainly do utilize them and appreciate when they are able to help the town with projects or programs.
If there are things that you know that are coming up, and you contact Jody Langworthy at the district or at the high school, she has a bulletin board where she posts many different things that the kids can do for community service. And right now, she has all the kids posted and how many hours they still need to graduate. So the kids can go right in, and right next to it, she has different volunteer opportunities such as the Little League snack bar. So if you have things coming up, especially like in April and May, those kids that were neglectful on doing their 24 hours, it's crunch time.
And I'm sorry, what was her last name?
Langworthy.
Langworthy, okay, thank you.
And she is the secretary at the high school office, and she is fantastic. She's been there over 20 years, and she'll take care of you.
Awesome, thank you. That's very helpful, and I think we'll definitely take advantage of that.
And she's the one that keeps track of the community service hours. She collects all the forms from the kids and enters them in, so she's
Perfect.
the perfect person to know if kids still need them or not.
Well, thank you. That was very informative. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I just say this? It does not fit in with what we're doing today. I would hope that as a result of this meeting and others that go around, that we would recognize the fact that the Fountain Hills School District is still a great district, because I hear some people saying negative things about this district, but it is not negative. It is doing an outstanding job. You know, I think that I think that the two L's that come to my mind, one is location, the other one is leadership. Location, if we were not right next to that little town right over the mountain, this would be the greatest school district in the state of Arizona. But we got to compete with them. Therefore, if we just keep telling ourselves, see, I'm from the old school. Well, I've been on the school board longer than anybody else now that the mayor is no longer on the school board. If she was still on that, would not be. But if we keep telling ourselves that we have the greatest school district in the world, this has the same thing, we can say the same thing about the town of Fountain Hills. This is the greatest town, Fountain Hills. You know, we talk about the negative things, but let's be positive. Our district is great, that A+ district. So many things going in our district that nobody wants to talk about positive. So I hope that as the town moves forward, you'll talk about some of the positive things that's going on over there at that school district, so that we won't end up with people thinking that we are at the bottom of the list. Because from my perspective, we are at the top of the list, and we'll stay at the top of the list. But excuse me, Madam Mayor, for saying that. I just like to say it at any rate.
He's our best spokesperson. He's our cheerleader.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Well, I just want to thank the school board, all of you, for the time and effort you put into this district. And while I think that this meeting was very good, I think that there's a lot more meat and potatoes that we should be talking about as a council and as a school district, and specifically what we can do to help each other and the goals and objectives, a SWOT analysis of both aspects of where we're going as a community and where the district is going. And I couldn't agree with you more. We have to have a lot more positive press. We have to work together, and we need to hear from the district, what can the town do for you? And specifically things of the nature that I'm thinking of school spirit. When I came to town and I moved to town in 2002, I remember the Fountain Homecoming Parade was phenomenal, and it was something that was very well attended by the community. I think it's very important that you tie in the community. We have an aging population, but we tie in the community with the district, and you have that buy-in. I'd like to see our Friday night lights, Friday night football games full of community and community spirit. I think if you can do that and we can continue to focus on the positives, we will see a turnaround in some of the challenges that we have moving forward. And I think those challenges come down to enrollment. I think they come down to the finances that come with a declining enrollment. And those are all issues that are serious that we need to talk about together to make sure that we're all going in the right direction as a community. So thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for your time.
I agree. Thank you for hosting us. We're very thankful to have the community support of the school district, and we're thankful to be able to have a nice partnership between the school board and the town council. I agree with Councilman Tolis that it would be nice to have some, to figure out a way to have a little more school spirit, more vested interest from the community. We are very thankful to our community every time we have an override or a bond. Even though we may have an aging population, they are very supportive of us financially, and we can't be more thankful to that. We've seen other districts that have had trouble passing bonds and overrides, and one time in the years, I've been here 16 years about, one time I can remember that it didn't pass, and it passed the very next year. So we are very thankful to our community for that. But I will say that I'm a baseball mom, so I attend every baseball game I possibly can, which, just for your information, Fountain Hills Falcons beat Sholo tonight to continue on the playoffs. So I was watching on my phone. But in Payson, there is not a seat in the house to be had when I go to a baseball game. Fountain Hills is a little represented, but those Payson parents come out in full force, and the whole town is there watching their kids play baseball. I'd love to see somebody fill up our stadium and have a community come out and watch our kids play football, watch our kids play baseball. We have a great town. We have a lot of championships in this town, and we have some great kids doing great things, and our community is missing out that they don't come and watch that. So.
Well, I agree with that, obviously, and, maybe we talk a little bit to some of the businesses, and there's like, come to dinner first, get, 20% off if you bring your ticket stub or things like that. We used to do that for the theater, but it's all about working together and being aware of each other, and sometimes we get real busy, but we do our best, and I think we're all on the same side here, so we're very thankful for you for coming, and next time we'll head over to your joint, and we look forward to that very much. And I guess if there's nothing else, we can adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hosting us.